a lot of spindle work, and it seems like everybody has problems with various tools. So I'm just going to run through some of the tools that I use. Say if you're going to make a cable leg or something. First off, I volunteered at our nature center in Decatur quite a bit, and I seem to be the go-to person. And I got one of the persons working there asked me if I couldn't make a bunch of tree cookies. Well, tree cookies is a section of like a walnut or something, a limb about like this, cut in half, or in actually half-inch sections. And she didn't tell me about this till I didn't even have 2 months lead time. I mean, you know, this stuff was green. And I could picture, you know, what firewood does if you throw it in the firewood pile. So I whacked off a bunch of these. And so I played it safe. I found out that if you have a piece of wood you think it's going to split, especially white oak, just put it in submerge it in boiling water. Boil it for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, you know, depending on the thickness. So this walnut was wet when I sliced it. I boiled it, and it's less than 6 weeks ago, and the crazy stuff down to less than 10% moisture right now. I've got a drum sander, and they're supposedly going to paint on them or something. I have not really figured out what they're going to do with it for sure. But I'm going to pass that around. You'll see that it actually turned out pretty good. There aren't any cracks in it. I think that's 150 grit on the drum sander. And I was really surprised. The only wood that cracked on me when I boiled it was O.C. Jordan.
You can do this with catalpa in the raw state and it won't crack.
Well, I found out that really I didn't need to boil that stuff. I had some there I cut later on, and it didn't crack at all. But maybe it was cut at the right time. You know, you try to duplicate sometimes, and the second time everything goes south.
How long do you boil?
Pardon?
How long do you leave it in the water?
I think I boiled some of this in about 20 minutes, depending on the thickness. Now I've also turned some walnut gold, and they were so wet that I got a bath whenever I roughed them out. Well, walnut's real bad for rusting the bed of your lathe and everything else it hits, you know. So I boiled them, and I had a 6-week lead time for them. And in 6 weeks' time, I had them finished. That is, the bowl's finished. I had the finish on them, and I was delivering it to the person. And it was down to less than 10% moisture too. I don't know what it does, but it sure works. So, something you might consider. Tonight I'm working with my favorite guinea pig, I call it, salt maple. I seem to collect a lot of this for some reason. And, well, right now, I was getting a little low on firewood, so I got a phone call from a friend of mine out of Long Creek, and I now have about, well, let's see, I got one the other day. I've still got about 10 or 11 trees to cut out there yet. Some of us, I got a mulberry about so big, it's all various woods. But if you're going to, I'm going to be turning between centers tonight. I'm not using a 4-jaw chuck. And of course I'm using this spur drive. You basically mark the center of what you're going to turn. And I use a brass hammer because I don't want to swell the top of this. And then you want those spurs to really seat. That's close. And bring your center up. When you're using a spur drive, you want to check the tension of this side here, because that spur drive, as you're turning your wood, will work itself into the wood, and this end will get loose. And if it's between centers, you know what's going to happen. If it gets real And Murphy's Law says it's going to hit you in the face. About everything I've had come out of a lathe usually aims for your nose. This is I've got a 1642 just like this at home on it. It's a 220 volt version, so I've got 2 horsepower. And but what I'm basically going to do is I'm going to take each tool and make a cut and kind of give you an idea of what the tool does. First thing I'm going to use is a skew, and I'm a kind of a fan of the curved skew because it's a lot user-friendly. If you're using the conventional skew, you'll notice that it's straight across, and I've got a radius on this. And you can use that particular tool right there. Before 1800, the only tools we had in our wood turning arsenal, if I can call it that, was the straight skew, spindle gouge, and the scrapers. That was just about all the tools they used. And if you turned the bowl, you did it with a scraper. Because the bowl gouge did not come in, was not invented or came into being until, I don't know whether it's 1930s, 40s, I'm not sure, when we come up with the bowl gouge idea. But this particular...
Hey, Jerry.
Yes, sir.
Can you move your light just a skosh towards you?
Okay, well, here. Stay. Well, keep forgetting where the magnet is. Does that work better?
Well, what the heck here? Let me. There you go. I got a little bit.
You read the
Yeah.
glare? Or?
Yeah.
I got you on that. Not really. Anyway, first thing you do with the skew, you want to smooth this out. And I've pretty well done this already. And this is probably the part where you get in trouble every time, is when you first enter the wood from, I usually work from right to left. I do turn a lot with my left hand, but you want to, most people just want to stick that edge in there. Well, if you lever it in, you've got control over it, and it works just great. And the skew will make a nice smooth cut too. The only thing I found out about a skew that you don't want to do, and you don't want to use it on figured wood, because figured wood you'll pull the chunks of wood out on it. If you plane the board, sometimes figured wood, sometimes you'll notice that a straight knife planer will pull out chunks of wood as you plane the board. I've been fortunate enough, I've got a spiral knife planer, and it pretty well eliminated the problem that you normally would have with figured wood. But that right there is smooth enough that you could probably start with 150 or even 180. So if you're going to make, say, a chair leg or something like that, usually your first tool of choice is your spindle gouge. And how many have problems turning beads? If you notice, a lot of times if you turn a bead, one side of the bead is different than the other side. Well, just welcome to the class. We're all like that. It takes a lot of practice, but you can get pretty consistent after a while. Just like if you're laying the bead out, you want the tool on its edge. You don't want it like that, that's for sure. My preference is just, and okay, if you don't start the point at the right angle, Of course, you get this skating action like I just got. And I kind of like the round tool rest, because right now I've got this finger actually hooked underneath it, my thumb up against it, and these two fingers here are on the tool too. And you've got a good, you don't have a death grip on it, but it gives you real control. Normally, if you get a problem with it wanting to skate on you or catch or something, you can hang on to the tool.
Can you move the light down to that end?
Yeah, it is. There you go, right there.
How's that? Okay? But, and you kind of start on the side and you just lay it out basically where you want it. Now this particular spindle gouge I'm using right now that skated on me is not the usual one that I use. I like a pointed, this is more rounded. I don't know if you can see that or not. And I really like this one better because it seems like it works better. And if you're going to turn a bead, a lot of times you can mark the center of it, but if you're going to turn a bead, work on the outside edge first. And as you rotate it, it'll actually follow the profile that you're wanting to make. Another thing, after a while you can work to the point that you can, if you've got a little ring right there, you can usually come right up to it and just plane it right off. Most of the time, if you use your tools correctly, you will not need hardly any sandpaper on them, other than just take out the little lines. But basically that is a bead. Actually, a little secret I learned is that if you take a parting tool and highlight it, just a little bit of a shadow line, like that, it'll make it stand out a lot better. So basically that would be a bead. We've been talking about we're talking about easy wood tools being scrapers. Okay, this is a scraper. The easiest tool that you can learn how to use, the safest tool you can ever get in your hands. You use it horizontally or pointing down just a little bit, and if you get a catch, it's going to pull the tool out of the wood. If you're using a spindle gouge, you've got the angle up like this, and if you get a catch, it's going to pull the tool right into the wood. So this tool here is what you use a lot of times on your bowls. You've got that end grain that's giving you fits. Go to the grinder, get a fresh burr on the end here. That's what really does the cutting. And get into the bowl there and just make a very light pass a couple of times. And a lot of times you can take a lot of that fuzz out. But in spindle work, this is used basically just straight in. And you always cut downhill. So I'll start on the upper left-hand corner, come down to the center, and then start from the other side. And then you can actually cut uphill a little bit and get by with it with the scraper, because it's not going to catch on you. But if you use the scraper right, you can get a pretty decent finish off of it. I was down at Jacksonville when they had their tractor, some kind of an old-time tractor thing.
Steam festival.
Yeah. And I was down there demonstrating with my mini lathe. And I was outside, and there was just a gentle breeze blowing that day. And I was using my scraper, and I was getting such fine little shavings off the scraper that it looked like cobwebs floating through the air. So if you've got a sharp scraper, it'll definitely make some nice shavings. But I'm thinking here. Okay, now you can also make basically a cove with a spindle gouge. If you're going to make a big one, you can just come up here and just, again, you angle it into the direction you're going. It's kind of a scooping action. Come over here, start to cut, and it's kind of a compound motion. You're using your wrist, also kind of a sweeping action with it, and it doesn't take long to make a decent cut with it either. But you always, well, you tell everyone to remember, what do you do if the wind's blowing? You lean into the wind. Okay, you cut like that. So you're kind of leaning into the cut more or less. That is another way you can make a cove. Let's see, what else do we need to make on this? Right now, I'm going to switch pieces, and I'm also we'll pass this around. I say this was cut with a spindle gouge. That's a scraper, and that's with the large spindle gouge. And if you can cut that clean, you will not have to do a whole lot of sanding. It's really something that takes practice, but it seems like that's what everything we try to do does. It takes practice. Okay, what do they do?
It's on the bench over here.
Yeah.
Over to your left. All the way over there. You left it in there and somebody took it out for you.
Actually, I have found out that I can leave it right there. And it'll sit there. It won't work itself out, and it'll stay right there. I've done it by accident, that's why I know. Again, you want to seat this in. If you're, if you've seen, say you was going to make a table leg or something, or spindle for a banister or for a staircase. Right here, it's very hard to make a cut without splintering that tip. And that's where the skew comes in. That cut can be made with a skew and made very cleanly. Actually, I've already cut that. But, so let's see here. We're going to make say we're making a table leg. I got conflict of interest here. I would start down on the bottom of the table leg. And first thing you're going to want to do is, we'll say, turn it down the sides. Okay, this particular tool is used for spindle work only. Don't even think about trying to use it on both. I've seen people try to do it, and it's extremely dangerous. It's not a real secure tool because you've got a very thin area here, and that can bend on you. I mean, there's a lot of nasty things can happen. Most of the time I'm turning with my tool rest either on center or above center. And I don't turn below center at any time. But we want to, I'll tell you, with this type of a tailstock here, you can really crank this thing in. You got to be careful. Well, it does rattle. But if you want to use this tool for tapering it down, you can easily do it. That's one way. Or you can, I call this my equalizer. It is a very versatile tool. You can use this tool flat on the tool rest. You can use this part of it. You can use the center part of it. Whatever you want to do. Now for roughing, I normally don't use a face shield for this particular thing because I've not really had any real problems. It wouldn't be a bad idea. If you're just beginning, I would definitely advise you to do so. The vibration you hear there is, okay, the piece is getting thinner on this end, and it's flexing in here. And that's why you get that vibration. I'm just kind of, now I notice right here that this is out of round. When it came off the lathe before and I rechucked it, it's not running like it should, so you can just come in here and the main thing you don't want to do is run off the end of your tool rest. I've done it. And it gets a little bit exciting when you do it. Some ways this would be the advantage of a longer tool rest like this. They're okay, but I like the round ones because there's less friction between your tool and the tool rest. But basically you're going to kind of taper it down. Something I haven't tried lately. I may try it. See what happens. Okay. Now, all right. There it is. Your skew, you can bring this in here. As long as you're rubbing the bevel, you're safe. When you're getting these kind of shavings, this is when you're cutting. If it looks like sawdust, you're basically scraping then. And you just work this down to what the shape that you're looking for. I want to try something here. It's been a while since I've done it. I think I might have enough there to do it. But what do they call them? Cabriole legs? You can get them by turning this off center. It's been a while since I've done this. And this being maple, I'm going to reduce my speed, definitely. And I'm going to use this. I'll keep it up here where hopefully you can hear what I'm saying. But I would probably use a spindle gouge. I don't know, I may have that too much. This is kind of an experiment. I didn't even plan to do this tonight, but use the scraper. Work down more than that. Yeah. But it kind of gives you an idea of what it would look like. I don't want to get it too thin because I don't want to lose this piece of wood. That would be basically how you would do a what's called cabriole leg. Okay, let's get back here to on center. Get rid of that. I will say I do have a trend face shield with the air filtration system. And if I work with walnut or if I work with cedar, those are the two woods that bother me the most. And if I use that trend air shield, I can't even tell I'm working with it. I was going to bring a pattern, and I should have, I guess. All right, what am I missing? I'm missing my part. Okay. I'm designing as I'm going here. Say you would like to have a bead up here. Usually, let's see here. No, let's go with the code. It doesn't take long, really, to make your designs in your legs. What really takes time is to make four of them as close to being exactly alike. That's when the fun begins. Say you'd want to turn a bead here. This is probably going to turn out to be another table leg, but it kind of gives you an idea of the different ways that you could turn these. Now, I'll use a skew on this one. But if you start on the outer edge and start with rounding the outer edge off first, it gives you a little more control and an idea of what your shape's going to look like. You can also turn your skew over, use the other point, especially when you're getting down into the bottom. It was just about a catch. But the grip I have on this, I can pretty well control it. My other problem is I just sharpened these skews and they are sharper and all get out. And it takes a little, I'd rather have them just a tad bit dull. And another thing about making these tree cookies, you do not want to try to make them with a brand new bandsaw blade. It's going to be extremely aggressive, and about all that's going to happen is you're going to touch it to the edge of that bandsaw blade, and it's instantly going to spin in your hand, and you're going to mess the whole blade up and everything else. And that's something I've learned the hard way. But basically, you would be turning your bead basically like that. I usually like to come in here with a skew and kind of smooth this up a little bit. Take my sharp edge off. I've seen the skew used more for a negative rake scraper than anything else, because most people don't want to take the time to learn how to work with it. Sometimes when you're working with something, you'd be amazed at what happens whenever you put a couple of lines in there. It'll take the plainness right out of the design. Sometimes you can say burn a line or something like that. Sometimes your legs will have a kind of a, I don't know, kind of a taper in it. And my favorite skew really is this one here. It seems to work good on just about anything I want it to do. And you'll notice that I'm not turning 3,000 RPM. A lot of individuals will turn a lot of RPMs, and that's all right if you want to do it. But this is just a theoretical design here, but say you want to make you can actually cut a cove or a taper with a skew pretty good. But you've also got to remember where the bevel is.
Now, what are you actually cutting with on the skew?
Pardon me?
What part of that skewer are you actually cutting with?
Right now, I'm cutting with just about 1/8 of an inch or less of this right here.
Okay.
Now, actually, with this particular skew, as they being rounded, I can actually cut with the whole thing. And that right there will make a nice clean cut. But if you...
Now, is that sitting flat on the tool rest, or you got it tipped?
it is, now, that's the advantage of your curved skew. It is flat.
Okay.
It's absolutely flat. If I wanted a different radius, I could easily just put this in here and let that radius develop right here, and then just go on down. Okay, you've got an area right here. Well, you kind of look at the tool and see where the radius of the tool matches the pattern you want to make. And just actually all you're doing, you're just pressing it in there. And of course everyone knows you can always touch this side of the lathe, but you don't want to touch this side of the lathe. That's the most dangerous area of a wood turning lathe, is between the piece and the tool rest, but it'll draw your hand right into it. And it's definitely, you don't want to try it. And I've known some people that have used a lathe for many years, and it took them somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 years before they actually got their hand got in there, or just that 1 millisecond of a lapse of memory, if you want to call it that, and that's when it's going to do it. So you got to keep those things in mind. Now I'm working with some very soft maple here, and this would be, I would prefer to be working with a piece of cherry or, you know, something fairly soft. But being soft like it is, now that was done with the skew. This is the scraper spindle gouge.
But you did this with a skew.
Yes.
How do you hold a skew to get it to work like that?
Well, before I pass that around, it takes a little practice. I have, myself, I've gotten so used to doing a lot of these things that I've got to stop and think, now how the heck do you do this? Because it just comes second nature with me. Now let's see how around I am. Ooh. Yeah, that's not gonna work. Okay, we'll do something else. How do you take a square piece of wood and make it round? I'm gonna bet you make a mess tonight. It's here somewhere. It's hiding. Hey, and I didn't put it on the floor. That's unusual. I usually put mine down there. But, I don't care how many times I take that out, if I'm going to reinsert it in, I'll always tap it back in. Yeah, we'll use that for.
If you're not perfectly centered, then what you're doing is not gonna turn out right, is it?
No. That is, in a way, a kind of an advantage of a four-jaw chuck. Because the four-jaw chuck will catch all four corners of these, and when you reposition it, a lot of times it'll come into pretty darn near right on. But since I'm using a spur drive, there's variation. There can be variation in the grain. And wood, between the growth rings, you've got hard, soft, that can vary things. Okay. I gotta stop. Think here. Actually, I would probably use the sharp point. And you want to come out here to your cutting air, and then you basically lever it in like that. I found I've got more control that way. But I'm just barely touching. And
We have the point down.
point down, yes.
The point works better than the heel.
Yeah, because the heel has more of a tendency to catch. When you're coming down like this, this part of the tool is exposed to that more so. Where this way, you've got the sharp point pointing down, and this is more or less out of the way.
That sharp point, you can actually see what you did
Yeah.
that way too.
Yeah, but
The other way, it's
well,
kind of blind.
if you're cutting off this edge right here, and this one's following you, it's going to dig in. But if you turn it over, this is sticking out farther than this, and it's not going to catch in the shoulder here. And just that one pass will make it nice and smooth. Again, I'll bring this in here like that. What's the advantage of using the skew? Well, if you use a spindle gouge to do the same thing, it will work pretty good, but you're getting into some hardness. And that works pretty good, but a lot of times you'll get little ridges in here like I've got here. And where the skew does not leave that type of a ridge, and it doesn't matter what size skew you use. You can come in here with this one. just cutting off of that first 1/8 of an inch, if you want to call it that. That can get to be a problem there when you have that. But that's how you get your clean corners in this. Now, we've got an area here, say that we're going to we want to make this round. What's the first tool you use? Gouge. But how often have you thought of using a bowl gouge? Because it works on spindle work just fine. Spindle gouges don't work worth 2 cents on a bowl. Don't even think of it. It's a safety issue. But this particular, this is called an LLWT grind, wraparound grind. There's various names for it. But if you come in like this, and it will do a nice job. It's going to splinter, but that's just part of, you're knocking off the edges anyway. Now, I've kind of gotten spoiled. I have a spring pole lathe, which is a foot operated lathe. And it's a great thing to learn on, because if you get a catch, it just stops, you know. But on it, you can actually take the point of a tool and use it, and it works pretty good. I'm not a real fan of that point, because you have a tendency of splintering a lot. If I was going to make this round, you could easily go back to this tool, which works very well. You want to work downhill, it definitely will do the job. Again, the scooping action. And then when you get it fairly smooth, you can actually use that straight edge to smooth things out. Like that. Now on this particular lathe, this has got what they call a dynamic brake. And it doesn't make any difference if you put your hand over here to slow it down or not. It doesn't make any difference. If I'm working on something small where I'm turning the lathe off and on a lot, that's why I like a mini lathe. Because it doesn't have a brake on it, except when you can put your hand on the end of the wheel here and stop it. But it does come with a disadvantage. If you don't have your chuck screwed on real tight and you put the brake on with your hand, it spins off and runs across the floor. And that's not too good either. And I've never figured it out why, but whenever a chuck like that will hit the floor, it will always hit in this area right here. And it'll make a nice, wonderful little burr that you'll spend the next half an hour with a fine-tooth file trying to get it so it'll work again. I've been there. Okay, my tool of preference for rounding something off is this guy. Because if you come in here, now the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to score this every so often. That will control the splintering of it. But that's why I like to skew.
Plywood cutter.
Yeah, you don't mess around. And if you're making say a bowl blank, and you're cutting the tenon in the base for your 4-jaw chuck, well, I use a Vic Mark 4-jaw chuck. It has a tapered dovetail. Well, part of this is angled just right. If you come in here with the end of it just put it in there like that, you got the right angle, you got the dovetail already made, you know, and 10, 15 seconds, you're ready to go. So it can be a real time saver. But
Would you do that cut again down here towards this end of your tool rest?
sure, let me go
We
down.
didn't get to see that.
The camera's not picking up the end towards the
Well,
stop.
There you go.
yeah, we'll just use a bigger tool. Again, I don't turn at high speeds. There's a lot of people that'll turn 3,000 RPM. I'm not a real speedy person, but basically what I'm doing is just sticking this in here, not straight in. Actually, I'm up at the angle where the bevel's cutting, and just basically levering it in. But you start the cut. I don't know if that's showing up on there or not.
Yep, perfect.
But that is all it takes to make that dovetail for your 4-jaw chuck to fit into. I've seen some people try to do it with a spindle gouge, and that will work, but the skew is so much faster and more uniform. I mean, you can come in here like this and do it like that if you want, but a lot of times, you can't see it with a light here, but you want this to be nice, or straight up and down, and you want that dovetail to go straight into that corner. And you can't get that sharp corner unless you come in with something like this. And it's a real time saver on, let's say, on a lot of operations that you're going to find yourself, well, for spindle work or some applications on a bowl. I wouldn't advise taking a skew down the back side of the bowl to shape it. It could be done, but it wouldn't be the best idea to try it, because I don't think it would be a very safe thing. But I've got that totally round. And then I like the big one for roughing, but this one here, and you can use it both directions if you want. But I guarantee you it didn't work that good when I first picked it up. First time I used a skew, I've told a lot of people this, first time I used a skew, it just jammed itself right in there. Of course, I wasn't rubbing the bevel. Scared the bejeebers out of me, and I wanted to use this thing for a throwing knife. You know, like stick it in the wall. And I really didn't pick it up for about another 3 years. And you know, this skew sat there on the shelf in the rack, and that thing just kind of glared at me and laughed at me all those 3 years. And I said, no way. So there's one thing that I tell everybody you don't want to challenge me, but I'll find a way to get it tested. And, but again, just simple, we'll say different uses of tools. There's your square corner. And again, you'll notice that your finishes on this is easily 100 grit max. You know. Of course, when we first do a lot of wood turning, 80 grit or 50 sometimes comes in handy. And sometimes, I don't know, I agree with the end grain in a bowl. there's times whenever you feel like using 80 grit, the only problem about using 80 grit is you gotta get the scratches out.
Yeah.
And probably, I think one of the hardest woods to work with, especially bowls and scratches, a lot of times you won't see them until you put the finish on them, is cherry. Because cherry seems like it hides those scratches until you put the finish on, and then when you put the finish on, then those scratches just glare at you. So, any questions on any of the tools I've used? Well, then everybody ought to be able to go home and do the same.